Shortly before WWDC 2019, Apple quietly upgraded their 13 and 15-inch MacBook Pro. Now, in my previous video, it was my opinion that you not buy a 2018 MacBook Pro while we wait and see how Apple addresses some known issues, particularly egregious thermal throttling and the equally infuriating butterfly keyboard. So, have they? Is the 2019 MacBook Pro a better buy now? The short answer is yes, actually, but with some critical things to consider before you waste your hard-earned money. So, sit back, relax, maybe hit that subscribe button, and let's talk about things to consider with the new 2019 MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
Now, before we go any further, just my usual caveat that this is only my opinion. I think it's important to distinguish that fact in a day and age where opinion is often packaged as news. So, in that vein, here are the 4 W's of 2019 MacBook Pro news. So who, what, when, and where. The who is Apple. The what is processor, keyboard, and other upgrades to the 13-inch and 15-inch 2019 MacBook Pro. And the where, of course, is Cupertino, California, and Apple's website. Now, I'll address the keyboard and screen first because they suffered some pretty well-publicized issues. The 3rd generation butterfly keyboards were suffering malfunctions at an alarming rate. So, has Apple fixed this with the new 2019 MacBook Pros? Honestly, we'll see. Apple has reinforced and extended their return and repair programs just in case. Now, according to iFixit.com, the MacBook Pro's repairability score is the most abysmal that they give, a 1 out of 10. And apparently, Apple has only made small changes to the butterfly keyboard this time around. Now, in brief, these included changes to the membrane material. It's now sort of a nylon material, and they lightly reinforced a metal striking plate under the key. And again, will this work? We'll see, but probably not. But I hope they do. Now, as for the screen, some of the 2018 MacBook Pros suffered an effect called stage lighting, where the backlight would cast uneven streaks along the screen. This was caused by wear and tear to a ribbon cable in the hinge, and one would only assume in the 2019 MacBook Pros that this has been alleviated, as it was a simple fix. Again, we'll see. Now, those are really the only 2 concerns to keep in mind because surprisingly, almost surprisingly, well, let's just say it, surprisingly, the rest is actually good news. And by the rest, I of course mean heat dissipation concerns now that there's 2 more cores on the top spec MacBook Pro 15-inch. It's hard to keep all these numbers in line. Thankfully, and due to some sorcery, as it turns out, the thermals are actually better for 2019, as they should be. Additionally, where 2018 MacBook Pros struggled to achieve even base clock, 2019 MacBook Pros actually cruise along much higher than base clock, even under sustained loads. For instance, the Core i9-9980H has a base clock of 2.3 gigahertz and cruises along happily under load at between 2.9 and 3 gigahertz. I'm actually pretty surprised at that. Now, this is actually not bad for a powerful, thin and light laptop. I'd actually be genuinely surprised to see a Windows laptop like the XPS 15 or the Razer, any of MacBook's competitors, do much better than that. But as of recording this video, we have yet to see. Now, there are many reviews that confirm these thermals that I will, of course, link below or put cards up here, something like that. I'll link you to those videos as evidence. But the thing I did want to touch on is just how Apple was apparently able to achieve this. Privately, people who have bought 2019 MacBook Pros have done the whole liquid metal replacement to the thermal paste, and they found that those results weren't much better. And that means that Apple is actually using top of the line thermal paste in their new 2019 MacBook Pros. And if this goes over anyone's head, I don't blame you. But all that means is that Apple is giving us the good stuff when it comes to thermal paste, and a lot of manufacturers have something to learn in that regard. So just kudos where kudos are due. Now, Apple claims a peak boost frequency of 4.8 or 5 gigahertz depending on what processor you choose, but it's important to keep in mind that this is only on a single core. So you're only gonna, if you ever see it at all, you're only ever gonna see 4.8 or 5 gigahertz when you do things like opening an email. Important. Moving on. This obviously isn't the end of the world, since most of the tasks we do day to day on a computer are clicking between, different tasks, different quick tasks. So you might see that burst up to 4.8, up to 5 gigahertz when you open that said email or switch to your web browser or something like that. But you are definitely not going to see 4.8 or 5 gigahertz under sustained load. Nowhere near it. You're going to be like 2 gigahertz below that, 2 or 3 gigahertz. 2 gigahertz below. Math. At full sustained load, the CPU will throttle down to the aforementioned 2.9 or 3 gigahertz. And that's honestly to be expected in a thin and light, unless your laptop is the thickness 2 C's of an old phone book. And for the younger viewers out there, phone books had all the phone numbers in the city in them. It was actual books that... Moving on, unless you have a really thick device like that, you are not ever going to see those sustained 4.5 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz boosts. You need a beefcake laptop to achieve those kind of numbers. But for thin and light, these numbers are actually pretty respectable. In other words, the 2019 MacBook Pros perform as expected, a thin and light of any manufacturer to perform. Okay, so the 2015 inch, that is a huge laptop. The 2019 15-inch MacBook Pro has several GPU solutions to choose from, but we'll go over that when we get to pricing and options and all that kind of stuff. 2019 inches. Talking is hard. When it comes to the 13-inch 2019 MacBook Pro, the upgrades to that CPU were really quite iterative. They got a boost in frequency, boost in speed a little bit, but it's still the old 8th generation core Intel processors. The 13-inch MacBook Pro did not receive the dedicated GPU option that I was wishfully hoping for, but honestly, that was really wishing upon a star. I didn't honestly expect that to happen. The quad-core Touch Bar model is actually the only model of 13-inch MacBook Pro to receive the upgrade. The non-Touch Bar 2-core models didn't receive any upgrade. They still use 7th gen dual-core CPUs, and I have zero idea why they still exist in Apple's lineup. Slapping the term Pro on MacBook Pro is already a stretch with such limited port selection and no SD card slot, among other things. So slapping the term Pro on a dual-core computer in 2019 is beyond baffling. If you want a dual-core MacBook Pro, just get a MacBook Air. It makes no sense. So now we get to the fifth W, the why of it all. My opinion on what you should buy if you need a 2019 MacBook Pro. So let's start with the 15-inch 2019 MacBook Pro. And remember all that 5 gigahertz talk? Yeah, that's only with the 8890HK processor option, and you can just happily forget about that. It is not worth it in any way, shape, or form. That's for people with more money than sense. You will never see any real-world benefit if it ever even hits 5 gigahertz. Why? Because it will drop almost instantly to that same 2.9 and 3 gigahertz as the lesser model 8890H. And by lesser, I mean cheaper. It is merely a tax on the ignorant. So I actually think that if you're after 8 cores, the base configuration will work best for most people. For most people going after 8 cores that have to have 8 cores. That's what I mean. The only thing I would actually upgrade if you must have 8 cores is the RAM. Upgrading to the 32 gigabytes of RAM is a much better value for money than the 5 gigahertz snake oil. From there, if you're more of a hardcore user like a video editor or a 3D render or something like that, you might want to consider upgrading the GPU. But again, for the vast majority of people, the Radeon Pro 560X is going to be more than adequate. That's an understatement. It's going to absolutely bulldoze through anything you throw at it, anything most people throw at it. Now, if you're not the type of hardcore user and you don't need 8 cores and you can happily hum along with 6 cores and 12 threads, get the 6-core base model. If you don't need the 8 cores, if you're not the person who needs all that grunt and horsepower, you probably also don't need the top spec 32 gigs of RAM. You'll be perfectly happy with 16 gigs of RAM. And it'd still be an absolute beast with the Radeon Pro 555X GPU. Now, the only thing I would suggest with the 6-core model is at least stepping up to the 512 gigabyte SSD. It's more storage, and typically it's a little faster. I think that's an ideal setup if you're only after a 6-core 2019 MacBook Pro. For most people. Adding literally anything else to that 6-core model at that point would get you so close in price to the 8-core model that you might as well jump over to the 8-core model. Now, if you need a Mac and you need something even more portable than the 15-inch MacBook Pro, the 13-inch MacBook Pro, the quad-core 13-inch MacBook Pro, is still a little beast. The only thing I would recommend there is, as long as you're in the MacBook Pro territory, up it from 8 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes of RAM and up the storage to 512 gigabytes of solid-state storage. And I think you would have a little peach there. If I was going to get a 13-inch MacBook Pro, that's what I would get. I wouldn't go for all the 1.5 terabytes of storage. I wouldn't go balls to the walls with it. That would be a sweet little setup. So, did we get everything in the 2019 MacBook Pros that I wished for in the previous video? Well, no. But we did take a good step in the right direction. If you're heavily invested in the Mac ecosystem and I can't stress enough, need a new MacBook Pro, the 2019 updates actually make it an easier purchasing decision. So just keep your receipts in case the butterfly keyboard fixes don't, actually pan out. So thanks for watching, everybody. Remember that we're all geeks about something, and that's a beautiful thing. Embrace your inner geek. You'll always have a place here at Geek Therapy Radio. If you'd consider subscribing to this channel or my podcast and geeking out with me each week, that would mean the world to me. I don't have a Patreon, I don't want your money, so subscribing, watching, listening, sharing your inner geek, that really would mean the world. So be good to each other, including yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.